Yes.
Was Lucifer created or food?
No. Lucifer was created, and I think we saw that in Ezekiel 28, and I think verse 14 is there. He was created. He was not formed like man. In other words, he doesn't have the earth suit. He doesn't have the body, the human flesh, as we have now. He's a spirit being. He doesn't have a body, and that's why he cannot really come and live here just as we live now. Even though after the fall, it gave them opportunity to come in here and get some things messed up. The fallen angels. That will be Genesis chapter 6 when you look at it. So he doesn't have our body, the kind of body we have to live in this dimension. He's a spirit being. So you see, we have a dual nature, so to say, even though we are tripartite, because even our soul is spiritual, and spirit is also basically spiritual, as it is called. But the body is meant for this dimension, the three-dimensional world, the material world, matter, and then it has to do with time and space. But the other dimension of us transcends time and space as well. All right. Yeah. Okay, so let us just dive into where the study and continue from where we stopped yesterday. I had talked about the fatal lie that of the serpent. Your eyes shall be opened, and what does that mean? I raised a couple of questions. I don't know if you can remember. You know, your eyes shall be opened. What does that mean? Weren't their eyes opened before? And they saw they were naked. In fact, the Bible said they knew they were naked. Weren't they naked before? And what sort of nakedness is that? All right. Remember, the devil said to them, your eyes shall be opened. Okay? Your eyes shall be opened. And it sounds something, powerful, something exciting. Again, Adam and Eve were not blind. They were not physically blind. Neither we are.
For interrupting you, please, Brother Innocent.
Yes.
Forgive me. When you asked those questions, it was when we were doing concept of sin. That's
Ah,
and this is your 101, I believe.
are you sure?
Yes, I always separate everything.
Oh, fine.
Those were the questions that you asked before we finished your 102 yesterday. You said the eyes of them both were open. Were their eyes closed before? Second one was, what does it mean for their eyes to be open? Then what does this nakedness mean? But it was all in your 102.
All right. Now, the truth is that remember what I said yesterday. The salvation is very encompassing, and you basically find some of them in dealing with sin. You are going to find most of those things, across this other one. Even though salvation is quite vast than the concept of sin. The concept of sin, we are only dealing with that wrong, terrible nature that human being acquired by obeying the devil and all of that. But again, you see it here because I marked in the place I stopped yesterday that the fatal lie of the serpent, your eyes shall be opened. Okay. Now, but even if I didn't answer those questions the way I wanted to deal with it in the concept of sin, it's also helpful if we touch on it a bit and continue. Well, once again, we are welcome. I want us to look at a few questions that that was asked yesterday, and some that other people wrote in and asked questions. So I'll start from the questions, and then we can proceed to the things we have to discuss today. All right. Now, one of the questions that we had yesterday was, can you help me with that again? That. No, sit down. Just go ahead and give me
My question is about the tree.
Okay.
Why did God planted the tree in the garden
Okay.
and instructed them, the Adam and Eve, not to eat the tree?
Okay.
So yes, and since He knew, He gave them everything and gave them dominion and everything.
Yes.
So why did God particularly instructed them
Not to take that
planted
tree.
them on
Okay. Okay. All right. The question is, why did God plant the tree knowing that most likely they will fail? He probably wouldn't have put the tree there. And a lot of questions surrounds the very tree, this tree in particular. I remember, can I have that, please? I remember Sister Isi asked a question on that too. And yesterday, I wanted a clarification on the eating of the fruits by Eve. And first, Satan asked if God had said they shouldn't eat of any tree in the garden. But Eve replied saying they could eat of every tree, but the tree in the middle of the garden, she specified that the tree couldn't be eaten of. So they never tested the fruit of the tree in the middle of the garden until the serpent tempted Eve. Secondly, someone asked why God didn't destroy Satan, and you said something about God not destroying what he has created. Please clarify. Now, let me respond to the issue of the tree. First of all, remember there were two trees in the middle of the garden, two important trees. One was the tree of life. The other one is a tree of knowledge of good and evil. Interestingly, God made both. Now, the tree of life, it's something they eat and they keep, obviously should continue to live on, because they were not meant to die. They were designed in such a way. God created them and made Adam to just live on for eternity. So there was nothing like death, sickness, and all the things we know today weren't there. Now, but all of this trouble came because of this very singular tree, that this tree of knowledge of good and evil. As I said yesterday, notice how it is described. It's a tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Now, so it means this tree is a source of information. Knowledge is about information, revelation. That coming from information or revelation, in other words, whether it's spiritual or physical. So you see, is a source of information, and this information will be good and bad that you're going to get from this information. And the word there, knowledge, is actually experience, something you know, and God knew that it was going to alter their life. It's going to change everything, and He told them not to take it. Maybe for some reason, not some reason, because He knew it would destroy them. How? And someone said, why did He not put it there? Well, you see, God putting it there, in a sense, stands for God's sovereignty, God's authority. Remember, Adam and Eve were not God. They were created, just as the devil was created also. Are you there with me? Remember, we were not told that in the heavens, that we are not told in the heavens that there was a tree in heaven that God had told the devil not to take. Are you with me? So perhaps God, because of whatever happened in heaven, put a tree here just to, first of all, also establish that His sovereignty, the authority of God, this is what I want. Okay? As much as I made you like me, because you have to take that into cognizance, that God made us like Him. And God is a free moral spirit also. He chooses to do right. Of course, He doesn't do wrong, but chooses to do this one, and when He wants to do it. So he also made us in his, when the Bible says he made us in his image and his likeness, it also means he made us in a way that we are like him. We can choose to do or not to do. But you see, that tree represents God's sovereignty and authority on the earth. Number one, that this place belongs to me. I created it. But now I am giving it to you on trust. And you've got to learn not to go beyond the boundaries. So if you will choose to obey me, you will keep, you will keep, these things. You will keep the estate. You will keep all that I have given you. But this shows your ability to submit, your ability to obey. That choice to obey God, to acknowledge that God is God and God is sovereign and God is my Lord and God is one I want to worship. It will be reflected in you, will be expressed and manifest in Adam and Eve not eating that tree. In other words, not disobeying God. Are you with me? In heaven, God did not put such a thing for the devil. At least it was not indicated. But now, God had put it here on the earth and said, now this shows that you are willing to keep all that I've given you, and you are willing to continue to, serve me and enjoy all that I have for you. So keep these things. Don't touch this one. Eat of every other one that you want to eat. So it represents, in a sense, God's sovereignty. And it gives Adam the opportunity to say to God, yes, you are my God, and I want to worship you, by obeying what God had commanded him. That again also reminds Adam, should also remind him that you are not God. You are not the Alpha and the Omega. You are not the creator of yourself and all these things. In other words, by setting a boundary, God wasn't really limiting him, but God was also reminding him that you need to understand that someone made you and someone also owns this place, and you have to take responsibility for what is given to you. Now, responsibility in the sense that he realizes that, or he should realize that, if you eat of this tree I ask you not to eat, you have chosen to die. Okay? And you have chosen to die, and as well as if you don't, then you have chosen to live. Are you there? So the tree represents God's sovereignty on the earth. It shows God's sovereignty on earth. It also gives Adam the opportunity to be accountable, that someone will hold him accountable for whatever he does. Are you with me? And all the whole issue of accountability, the whole issue of Adam choosing to obey God or not, the whole issue of Adam, learning to say yes, or expressing also his nature, which is like God, the power to choose either wrong or right. But now you become, intentional about your choices and say, okay, I'm going to choose right, because that's how I can continue living and enjoying all these that God has for me. So it was available for him. It was put there to, for him to go through this. God put it there so that it will help Adam and guide him to continue. If God didn't put that tree there, how would we know that God made us like him? How are we going to know that God made us like him? Because one of the attributes of God is that he can choose to do something. He's a free moral agent. He's a spirit that chooses to do something and may choose not to. He may say, I'm going to punish. He may also decide and say, okay, I've forgiven you. Are you there? So God didn't make us a robot. And for that to be proved and for that to be made manifest, he gave us an opportunity to be like him, to live like him, to behave like him, to choose right or wrong, to choose to do or not to do. Otherwise, God would have made us a robot so that we are programmed and wired that even if the devil talks to the next 10 million years, we'll be looking at him because we are dumb and numb and we don't respond to any of those things. But that means God would have made us lower and very, very lower, even more lower than animals. Let me go through it again. Number one, it shows God's sovereignty and that God is the creator and the owner of the garden, the world, the universe, and Adam also. And so that Adam will know that he is not the Alpha and the Omega, and that he can be held accountable, and he will be held accountable. Number three, it gives Adam opportunity to express the law of his being, which is the ability to choose or not to choose, to obey or not to obey, which is how we were designed, and that is one of the attributes that make us look like God as well. In fact, it is at the center and the heart of the image and the nature, image and the likeness of God, because it means we can choose to do or not, just as God does. And number four, that also gives Adam an opportunity to know and understand that he himself is not God, that he has responsibility, to keep this place that was given to him or lose it. He has responsibility to protect his own life, his wife, and his children, or not. In other words, it's not like God didn't make him to run around here like an animal. He must have a sense of mission, because God never bothered about the animal eating or not eating, because there was no such expectation from them, because they were not also made like God. So it was Adam and Eve who were made like God that God put such an expectation. And somebody did ask and said, why is it that God didn't tell Adam and Eve that that there's an enemy? Well, I do think that God told them, but it was implicit, it was implied. If you read Genesis chapter 2 and verse 15, when God planted the garden, God told Adam and said, take care of this garden, cultivate it, and guard it, and keep it. The word guard or keep it or take care, work it and guard it, protect it. There won't be any need to talk about protecting and guarding if there's no possibility of an intruder, of an enemy. And because, remember, it was Adam and Eve who were the first people that were on the earth, or were in this dimension of existence. So there's nobody, they've not given birth to anybody that will come and rob them. Nothing was going wrong in their nature, and they won't be stealing from each other, that kind of stuff. So if God had said, guard it, keep it, it does mean things can go wrong. And if it can go wrong, then you have to protect it. Okay? So for the very fact that God said guard it, is suggestive of the fact that there could be an intruder, there could be an enemy. As I said, if you read Genesis 1-2, you may not see it explicitly said there's an enemy, be careful. But when you read it and God said guard it, it is implied that there is also an enemy that might be there. And another question that was written to me was the issue of God doesn't destroy. Now, what we call death, then God is not a God that annihilates things. In other words, put them out of existence. God is not really such a person. I like you to. In fact, if you study the Bible closely, you find out that it is not in the character of God. What we call death, there are three kinds of death in the Bible. The first death is a death of plugging out of God. That is like when you plug your phone in the power and it's charging it and it's full, and you unplug it. Okay, that unplugging is the first death. We are plugged into God, into His glory. When Adam and Eve, sinned, the first death occurred, and they were unplugged. You remember, if you unplug your phone from the source, you notice that from that time, the battery of that phone starts dying. That you must understand, because it moves from 100% to 99%. It might take 2 or 3 days, depending on the usage and what you do with the phone. Okay, but you notice that it keep going gradually. Are you there with me? Now, the second death, which is the death we know today, everybody's quite familiar and common with, is the death of the separation of the spirit and the soul from the body. Now, that is the spirit and the soul are always together. They are knit, they are bound together, and that is an immortal part of us, an immortal part of us, the spirit and the soul. They are different, but they are so tied together. Okay, and that is why whatever you do on this earth, when someone transits, when someone passes on, that's why we do. They say transition to glory, passes on. It doesn't mean the person has died. It means that the spirit and the soul has transited. They have separated from the body, and our earth suit, which is our house, dies. That is what we know as death. But even in the other dimension, whatever that happened here, who you knew here, and the things, the way you think here, and everything about your personality will still be with you in the other side. Yes, you will still, remember the story Jesus told in Gospel of Luke chapter 16 about the rich man and Lazarus, the poor Lazarus. And Lazarus died and went to heaven, and rich man died and went to hell. You know very well that I've always,
That the men have done what they ought
yeah, God knows that I've gone crazy. God knows. But you see, always remember, God will always leave man and want man to be responsible. It's that point that is very critical. So he came calling for them, and of course they responded, and then he replied them, "Have you eaten of that and I ask you not to eat?" So was he mean God doesn't know? He knows, because if they basically he knows, but he had to allow them, or give them the opportunity to to manifest what they have done. And
themselves.
yes, and then even that opportunity was a good one, because if they had run to him, remorsefully broken, crying, and threw themselves at his feet and say, "If you want to kill us, fine, but just know that we are sorry. We didn't understand it. This guy has tricked us into this mess and madness." That would have been, maybe things would have been a bit different. The two Benjamins just went ahead and they went ahead and took off.
Well, I believe that because they had eaten that apple, it had hardened their hearts to ask.
That's the point I want you to see. That is the point. The nature has changed. Something has gone wrong inside of them. Instead of them acting properly like children that are, when you have kids, you even tell them, bring their hand and flog it. They bring their hand. They'll go and bring the cane and bring their hand. And my son used to do it. And sometimes you are just frustrated with beating. He will, sometimes you tell the elder one kneel down, he equally too will come and sit down and kneel down too. And then you look at them and you just say, "Will you both of you get away from here?" Get away from this place.
But the thing, I believe that they lost God consciousness even before they ate the fruit. Because if they were still God conscious at the point before they ate that fruit, that God consciousness will not even allow them take anything that.
Let me equally come in there quickly. The loss of God's consciousness is a cause and effect thing. The loss is at the eating. But remember, sin doesn't start with the act alone. Sin starts with the thought, with decision, with acceptance. Jesus, speaking before, said, "If you look at the woman lustfully, you have committed the very act." Don't think it's only when you started doing it physically. So everything begins, because in the eyes of God, our thoughts are also tangible. And it's not temptation coming to your mind is the problem. It is really you engaging that stupid thought, engaging that and accepting it and cherishing it and fantasizing and nourishing it. Once you make a decision in your heart, it is considered done. The only one that is left is a physical action. And that's where the trouble is. So that innocency was gone. They took off and they ran away. And we see that happen every now and then today. Strange language, very strange language. What did he say? The first thing that left his mouth was, I heard your voice and walking there. I was afraid because I was naked. Look at the kind of thing the guy was answering. And I hid myself. They were asking him geography, he was answering biology and all kinds of nonsense. And which is terrible. Now, there's something to learn from there. Understand that Adam now is speaking from his fallen perception of life, of realities around him. One, he's afraid. What made him afraid? We have looked at it. Okay, sense of guilt, sense of judgment, sense of shame, and understanding that he's going to be punished. All of that. So he had this sense. Now he's not speaking from a consciousness that is already broken and collapsed. It's a fallen consciousness. So most times we talk from our consciousness, from our awareness. Are you there with me? That's where we talk from. Yeah. Now, but at the same time, I put it this way. Language, okay, which is, when I mean language, what we say, comes from our awareness, from our consciousness. Are you with me? Now, but what we also acutely aware of your state of poverty, and that may continue and remain there. But if you begin to alter your consciousness, which is actually how God functions, Romans 4:17, God calls things that be not as they were. Okay, if you begin to call things forth and begin to say, I am blessed because God is with me, I am blessed. Romans 4:17, God called things that be not as though they were. If you begin to call things and begin to call it forth and call it forth and call it forth, persistently, consistently, over a time, it will override that terrible, useless consciousness that you have received or that you were aware before, and begin to put another consciousness that you are blessed, that God is with you and things are well. And I can assure you things will change. Even your body will change. That's why the Bible says life and death is in the power of the tongue. So that's about language coming from consciousness and language also cementing the perception. So whichever way it goes, the two. All right. Another observation that we made was they could still hear the voice of God. He heard the voice of God walking and he took off. But instead of the voice producing faith, the voice was producing fear. Are you with me now? Because you see, when they committed sin when someone commits what's wrong and you hear the voice of God, my daughter, hey, your heart will sink into your heart. That is because of this that I did now that is calling me. Who knows what he's going to do? You see, instead of producing faith, okay, that will give birth to miracle and enjoyment and all of that, it produced fear. And the other one, because he wasn't wearing the right clothing, that was shame. And he didn't want to go meet God in the useless state that he had, chosen to be. So he wasn't wearing the right clothes. The glory of God has returned to God. And then the second thing. Now look at the second thing you must observe. The second strange reply. Another strange reply. And God said, "Have you eaten of that food I asked you not to eat?" Look at what he answered. The woman you gave me. The second stupid talk that came from this guy's mouth. Have you eaten of that I asked you not to eat? Because that's the only thing that can make you talk all this nonsense you are talking now. Have you taken it? He now manifested the full-blown, this is like a full-blown ace. He now manifested the full-blown nature of Satan inside him. He said, the woman you gave me. Because I was alone here by myself. I didn't ask you for a wife. In fact, you actually said you made this one customized. But look at what he has done now. I was alone. Now he's accusing God. He's not accusing God's goodness to him. In fact, sometimes some people say that's why God later said, he that findeth a good wife has found favor from the Lord. You now go find for yourself. Since I gave you a good one, you accuse me on top. Now he said, look at it. It's the woman you gave me. Two things right there. One, accusing God. Two, shifting blame. Never took responsibility And that's exactly what you pointed at again. The heart has been hardened. Wasn't soft, wasn't broken, wasn't said apologetic about it and say, I'm so sorry, just apologize. Just kind of, no. He said, it was the woman you gave me. It's him that caused the problem. In other words, God, you are the one that after all caused this thing. Satanic nature. So we observe accusing God's goodness, shifting blame, and unable to take responsibility. Thank you. They asked Eve the same thing. No, Eve did the same. Both ate the apple. They asked Eve, he said, why did you do this? Satan beguiled me and I ate. And bless God, he never asked Satan. I don't know what he would have answered. Thank you. We have lost almost an hour for those who are in those who are doing flexing, and that's Sister Fion, but it's okay. God will give us grace. I think we will take it here today. Once again, I thank you for being part of it. And this is what I like to say. If there are questions, I can't take them now. Send them in the forum or send them to me. We'll start our next lecture with them. We'll start discussing them. We'll start looking at those questions, answering them, responding to them, clarifications. And we'll continue from that. Thank you. And
Okay, we shall bow. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank you, Brother Innocent.
All right.